It is Phil Ratcliffe with Rebel Financial, and thanks for tuning in to our live broadcast. We have been on a little hiatus. I was on vacation, and Tony was running the New York Marathon. So hopefully you will excuse our brief absence there, but it was for a little bit of vacation and doing some bucket lists.
Yeah, I mean the marathon only took 4 hours, right? But it was getting there and enjoying New York and returning home that kept me away last week.
So good deal, and thanks for being here. Today we have postponed this a couple weeks, but we're going to do our book review, and we are talking about Thinking in Bets by Annie Duke. Tony's got the book there. I know a lot of you, probably like us, rely more on the audio books and what's up, but it's nice to have the hard book when you can, especially when there's some diagrams in there so that you can check out.
That's right, and she does have some in the book, so it's useful.
So digging into this, I guess I'll start out, and I think one of the main things that I've come to embrace, and I'm kind of a math and science person, so it's probably less hard for me than most people, is that her thing is embracing uncertainty, and that the world works, more in probabilities rather than right and wrong. But we've evolved to really think about things in right or wrong,
And to keep things, I mean, we want things to be really simple, yes or no, silver bullet answers, but they just aren't. And the fact that she is a former poker player and a studious woman, I mean, poker is really a good vehicle for this because there's so much uncertainty in poker.
Yeah, and I think people, if you've played it or you watch it on TV or whatever the case, and you hear the dialogue or what, so you'll hear people talking about, well, that's a good hand or that's not, and even if it was a good hand, you'd still lose, right? And so many times in our life, and she has lots of good stories in there, people do what she calls resulting, and they look at like how things turned out and say, well, if it worked out good, then my decision was good. If it worked out bad, my decision was bad, and that may not necessarily be the case, right?
Right. One of the things that she goes back to the Super Bowl and the famous play for those that remember when New England was playing Seattle, and it was like a second down towards the end zone, end of the game, and Pete Carroll called a pass, which was really pretty unusual at the time because they also had Marshawn Lynch, a great running back in the background. It would have been a lot safer to hand off to him. But what happened was they passed and the ball got intercepted, right? And the reality was, though, when you look at all the statistics, it's a very high probability play, low probability of an interception.
Yeah, it was like 2% the whole rest of the season that there would be an interception, right?
That there would be an interception in that situation, and it's probably caught New England off guard to some degree.
And if it was incomplete, it stops the clock, they get another play, right?
It's time management issue too, right? But as great as all that quick thinking went into it, right? The result wasn't what they wanted. And that's what people look at, and that's why
they said it was a horrible play.
A horrible play because the result was
throw the game away.
Right. So even though, like you said, a 1 in 50 chance there's going to be an interception, it happened, and because of that, it was a bad call.
Yeah.
And it wasn't about the call. It was about the call itself. Had a lot of good logic to it. The result just wasn't a good.
And all the time, people make bad decisions, and it works out good for them, and they erroneously make the conclusion that it was a good decision, or a bad decision that ends up lucky and they win, and they think it was a good decision.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times we need to realize that, there's a certain probability of something happening, and it doesn't necessarily reinforce, and that the hardest thing for people to do, and I think that she mentions one of her, when she was younger, playing, watching somebody that was more experienced after he just won a tournament or some big hand, and afterwards he wanted to go and break down everything that he did wrong, not concentrate on that I won,
right?
And I'm awesome, but what could I have done better, or did I win because I was lucky, or did I win because of the things that I did right?
Right.
Yeah.
He wanted to improve upon the process, right? I mean, so
I think that it's such a great important lesson that most people probably don't practice at all. Yeah. Or there's probably a good majority of human beings that aren't even realizing that it exists.
Yeah. Well, there's so much that's uncontrollable, and luck is involved often all of our decisions. I mean, I think you get people to flip a coin, and some people are going to be right 3 or 4 times in a row, and then they're going to start to think they're good at flipping coins or something, right? I mean, when you get the result that you're hoping for, you start to tell yourself it's because of you, you know.
And that comes to another point that she kind of brings up in there, which is the motivated reasoning, or the more I guess behavioral science name for it, confirmation bias, right? And we see that people probably are more familiar with that, probably more with all the divisiveness in politics these days, right? With fake news and wanting to believe things that reaffirm what we already believe, right?
Yeah. And it's so easy to do now. There's so many vehicles to get in your little echo chamber and try to find those that just are echoing what you believe or have already been told, right? And we're doing it all across the spectrum, the political spectrum. But it's a great example today of confirmation bias is what we're doing right now.
Mm-hmm. And it's, I mean, it is a thing that is necessary for people to grow and make better decisions. And what so is to actively like seek out information that's right, not necessarily just confirming what they already believe. And so, you know, it's one of my favorite memes where it's like this guy's head is exploding. And it's like, you mean I can actually read something and change my mind? Epiphany, right? But most people won't even won't even pick it up if the title of the article or whatever sounds like it could be against what they already have in their mind, right?
Yeah, too many people are staking out a position immediately and what they, you know, what they want the result to be, right? Mm-hmm. And then they just fill in the gaps from there.
Well, it's kind of interesting because one of the, I think a lot of the research has pointed out, we like to believe that the way we make decisions is we hear something, then we vet it out, make sure that it's true, and then believe that it's true. Whereas most evolutionarily, we just evolved for quick decision making, and because we're so busy these days, or have the perception that we're busy, that we hear something, we believe it's true, and then sometime in the amorphous future, we will go research it, which doesn't happen a lot of times. So there's so many times where we just hear something or read something and then just assume that it's true.
Right.
You know, and that is the way that most human beings are functioning. And if you don't go look it up within a certain period of time, then you'll forget that you never even did that. And that's so many times when people are like, I know I read that somewhere. I know that it's right because somebody told me this. And you're just like, you don't even know. You just think it's right. You know?
The internet told them. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess the next point would be self-serving bias, right? So I think we run into this a lot in our industry, and I mean a lot of our peers and ourselves. We have to be careful of it. I think it's probably one of the most destructive biases that we have. You know, the easiest way I think to explain it is like when you do something right, you know, you think it's because you have skills or you're awesome. When somebody else does something right, it's because they're lucky. Or when you're wrong, it's because you're unlucky. And when they're wrong, it's because they're stupid or not good or whatever, right? You know, and so
you got the result because of you and your genius. Yet, you know, people aren't doing enough introspection to think how did they get there. So.
And so that a lot of times can lead you to making the wrong decisions or conclusions about your actions and the actions of others and the world in general, right? I mean, obviously, it does a great job of making us feel more confident, and probably, even though you know suicide is a huge problem and what so, it probably keeps that number way down. From thinking that all the things that happen to you are just unlucky rather than your fault, right? But in terms of growing and making better decisions in the future, you need to realize that you're doing it. You know, a lot of times, and sometimes give people credit as well. You know, which comes to, I guess, some of the conclusions, right? I think one of the interesting things, and I'll let you speak to this, that she says life is more like poker and less like chess, right? So
yeah, well, that's what I was saying earlier. Poker is such a good vehicle, right? Because first of all, you know, you see limited information, and you have limited information, but based on that, you have to make pretty quick decisions, right? And that's really, I mean, you've said it a bunch of times. We've kind of evolved to have to make on-the-spot decisions, you know. But and you sit there and you've got 5 people across the table that are holding something you don't know about. And so as long as you consistently make a good or a right decision, you're probably going to have a better outcome over the course of time. But that one hand may not work out. She gives some good examples of, Nick, the gambler, and always playing the worst hand in the world because no one expects you to play the worst hand. And because he had luck with it probably once or twice early.
And he won't learn from it.
And he won't learn from it, right? And he just continues to do it. So poker is great because it's about the process, and you're going to lose a lot. Even though you've done the right thing, it's not going to result in
what you want. I don't think people realize that every possible move in chess is calculable, and every move that someone makes limits the amount of moves that could be made. That's why a human being can't beat the supercomputer now in chess, because we can't hold that information entirely. I mean, obviously, our chess champions and Witso are awesome at holding the possible patterns of all the different moves, but there's still a finite amount of them, and it can be calculated. Whereas when you think about poker and life in general, there's too many variables, there's too many permutations, there's a lot of unknowns. And so we think about chess, and I think a lot of people think, oh, there's a right and there's a wrong, and if you do this, that, and that, this will happen. But there are always so many unknowns, like the analogy with the poker, that you have to actually think about it in percentages. When I have this hand and I'm playing against 4 other people, then 80% of the time this awesome hand will win, but there's still a 20% chance that it may lose. So even if I play the odds and then I lose, you don't want to draw the wrong conclusion to say that was a bad thing. If I did it enough, I would come out ahead, and it's still a good decision. And that's, I think, a very hard thing to grasp because it makes our lives less certain, and it's not comforting.
Right. Because that's what we want. Like I said, we want silver bullet answers that are really comfortable, and that's why poker is such a great analogy for life, and the uncomfortness and the lack of answers and silver bullet answers that are out there.
But by accepting these things and taking responsibility, and even if it's not quite as comfortable, and doing things to ameliorate some of the inconsistencies that we have in our cognitive decision-making processes, you're going to bring yourself to a better life outcome statistically. Right. You could still be that person that's just walking around with a storm cloud over their head and you're unlucky.
So somebody's at the tail end of of the curve, right? So, but absolutely, and getting comfortable knowing that your decision, no matter how good it is not always going to provide the right answer. And when you get that bad result, sometimes it's going to be, it's not in your control, and you don't need to be emotional.
And she goes through a lot of things. I mean, I recommend you read the book. It's a good book. It challenges a lot of things, and at the end, some of the things you can do to help yourself. I think one of the things that she talked about that really helped her was having a decision pod, or people that would help her be critical about breaking down wins and losses and different decisions, and helping you to make sure that you're honest with yourself and learning from your life and your decisions. So I thought that was really interesting. And then, kind of moving on to what we do investment and financial planning wise, this is, even though I think a lot of people come to us and think that we're just like an accountant and we can just solve out the problem, that's not how life is. There's too many variables, there's too many uncertainties with the markets and what human beings are going to do to change interest rates, and when there's going to be a recession, and what do you do? Can you predict it? So these things inherently have so much uncertainty that you can't predict it.
Yeah. And we see it all the time with people wanting to, try to plan and predict the future.
All of these things that we've talked about, yeah.
I mean, if the market goes up 3 days in a row, people are euphoric, right? I mean, it can totally change. The next week, if it goes down 3 days in a row, they want to jump off a cliff.
Yeah. For the last year, a decent proportion of our clients really worried about recession. And recessions suck, and things are going to go down, and it's going to happen. It's a natural part of the economy. But predicting when it's going to happen and trying to use that perceived crystal ball to make decisions is actually statistically proven to make you underperform, if not potentially make critical mistakes that can hurt you. And it's very difficult knowing that this thing is on the horizon, whether it's 2 months or 2 years from now, to not do something about it,
Yeah.
right?
Right, because it's going to be coming, like you said, and then it's going to come again within 10 years too. And so, and they're not that bad. I think talk about recency bias, although it's 10 years ago now, our most recent recession was one of the worst we've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And so now people think
it's
whenever we have a recession, that's what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
In all likelihood, that's not what's going to happen. And really what we have for us is to look back in time and say, what has happened in the market, and that is what we base everything we do on, what has happened and what has worked, what's going to give us the greatest probability in the future going forward, to give people the best return based on their situation.
And then that's the investment side. I mean, on the financial planning side, obviously for most people it is tied to their investments because they have those things and that's where they're going to pull money from to make their retirement plan or their kids' college education or what so. But a lot of people say, well, how much can I withdraw and when can I retire? And in the past, a lot of our peers, and even me when I was younger, we'd say you could do this now, and you look at averages, but really that's not how the world works, and we kind of know that intrinsically. When somebody will say, "Well, you don't know what the future is going to be," absolutely, you're right. But when we use statistics to, in a complicated way, model out somebody's future, then we can say within pretty affirmative things that yes, the average is here, but here's your range of outcomes somewhere in between there. So on the high side, you'll be here. On the low side, you'll be here. And most permutations will hit out about right here. And so what our profession has kind of evolved into is helping people to understand those range of outcomes where you're more likely to hit up, and then to do financial planning as a process that continually evolves to see where we're actually tracking again on those range of outcomes versus what the range was. And the farther we go along, the more it will squeeze in. And so, again, financial planning for people that really practice it well, kind of moving into this, really is a very probabilistic thing, and helping our clients reconcile that in their mind, because that's not generally how we think as human beings, right? And we want them to have better lives, to make better decisions, to have better outcomes, and us helping them reconcile the math, chaotic side of the universe with the certainty that they desire to want to have a secure future, retirement, etc. Is a difficult thing.
Yeah, and like you said, it's changing all the time. I mean, so, but that's what we're trying to do, hone in the best we can on the probabilities of what is going to be the result in somebody's particular situation. And quite frankly, that's why it's better to talk to a financial planner as early as possible, just so we can start to figure out how we can manipulate, their situation to make it a better outcome down the road. Sure. Too often we have people coming to us right at retirement, and while we could do some planning to optimize what's going to happen going forward.
But it's already done a lot of times. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, thanks for tuning in with us. Obviously, keep reading. Hope you read this book along with us. If you didn't, it's a very easy read. It's entertaining, and I think it has some wonderful life nuggets in there that will help you in your life. Join us next week. We're going to do our monthly financial planning subject. We're going to do end-of-year financial planning, tax moves that you can make or that we see more common that really help people. Then the week after that, because we were a little bit behind from pushing this back, is our next book, which we're going to do Everybody Lies. So another great read about some data that they've harvested from all of our Google searches. If you haven't read it, try to read it the next couple weeks so you can be up to it with us, or you can get our summary and how it relates as well. So thanks so much for tuning in.
Yep, thank you. Have a great week.
Have a good weekend.